Rita is here. She is the final unit of Season 2, and yes, she is not a limited character. The next limited is all the way in the summer. For her kit, she's got a couple of options. I think you can build her as a primary DPS, as a sub DPS, or just really as completely a support. She's definitely got different ways to build her depending on who you want to use her with. I think she's okay. She's probably going to be really good for this rift, and then besides that, we'll see how it goes afterwards. But we've had some pretty banger units this season. We had 9 Dentafera, who are both really, really amazing, and I think like insanely good characters. If you are running low on resources for Rita, then of course the best place for you to pick up crystals is going to be at lootbar.gg. No matter what you're looking to pick up, Lootbar provides it fast, secure, and at a more affordable price, with 24/7 customer service and refunds guaranteed. If you haven't gotten your double crystals yet, buying it on Lootbar can save you up to $30 if it's your first purchase. Lootbar has been providing deals for games for years, giving them over 30,000 reviews on Trustpilot with an average rating of 4.9. New users can currently get 2 coupons for an additional 12% and 8% off their purchases, so make sure to click on the link below and sign up now. First things first, we gotta talk about her unique mechanics. We're gonna take a look at her mythic card. So you have Chronicle and Chrono Ascension. At the start of your turn, you lose all your Chronicle and you get Chrono Ascension instead, a maximum of 6, and you can't get more Chronicle while you have Chrono Ascension. The way you get Chronicle is in her other cards. She has an upgrade card that pretty much defines how you'll be getting Chronicle throughout the fight. We'll take a look at that later. Chrono Ascension, it basically is AP that you can use only for Rita. It specifies it's only her cards. Same thing, you can't get Chronicle while you have Chrono Ascension, and then at the end of the turn, you lose all your Chrono Ascension. And what Time Paradox does is it basically just procs this effect again at the start of the turn, or when you play this card, you'll lose all your Chronicle and you get Chrono Ascension, maximum of 6, because your Chronicle stack max is 6. Basically, you get to have this effect twice per turn, once at the start of the turn, and then once when you play Time Paradox, a maximum of 12 AP specifically for Rita. And your gameplay loop is pretty much going to be, you start off the fight, you max out your Chronicle, you play Time Paradox, that's 6 AP for you to use, you use it all up, you gain 6 more Chronicle, so you can carry the Chronicle over to your next turn, and at the start of your next turn, you'll lose all your Chronicle, get Chrono Ascension, and then you just use all the Chrono Ascension, gain 6 Chronicle, play Time Paradox, use the Chrono Ascension, and gain Chronicle again, and you just keep on repeating that loop pretty much. That's for an optimized setup. Like, especially in Chaos, you're probably not going to be able to necessarily always use up for Chrono Ascension, which can lead to some awkward situations where you just don't get to use your Chrono Ascension, so you can't stack up any Chronicle and you're missing all the AP on your next turn. But that's more of a Chaos-specific issue. For a proper setup, you should be able to use up all of your Chrono Ascension and cycle your Chronicle properly. And then, that is why, even though her basic cards are really high cost, they're technically usable. Rewind, of course, we're removing. For Time Acceleration, she does have some cards that kind of interact with these, but I would still opt to remove them, just because, I mean, they're they're gonna fill up your deck, and you might as well just remove them. I think it's going to be better. Unless, for like Chaos runs, you can keep them if you want. It is 3 cost though to use up all of your AP pretty much immediately. Let's take a look at her, not Epiphany cards, but cards that can get Epiphany. First up is Chrono Archon. This is her primary card. Her kit kind of revolves around this. This is the card that I mentioned that gives you Chronicle. So first up, when a card is activated, 1 Chronicle for each cost of that card, and she has a lot of high cost cards, plus you probably be using her to support units with high cost cards. So this is where a lot of your Chronicle generation comes from. And then you have, when Chrono Ascension is removed, 3 Chronicle. This is, I think, a lot better than it sounds. Especially because this basically makes it so that you only need 6 Chronicle to max out your cycle, because at the start of your turn, you lose all your Chronicle, you gain 6 Chrono Ascension, you use up the Chrono Ascension, then you have 3 Chronicle already, so you only need 3 more Chronicle to max it out, then you can play Time Paradox, use up all the Chrono Ascension again, and then you get 3 more, and you only need to gain 3 more Chronicle to get back the 6. this pretty much halves how much Chronicle you need. I think this is generally the best one, and it's a one cost upgrade initiation, and you need some source of Chronicle generation. I think typically you would be picking up this one. After that, it gets a bit more specific. This one, I think, is just kind of bad. At the end of the turn, 100% damage to a random enemy for each Chrono Ascension. So this actually is worded very strangely. I think this needs a little bit of testing. Regardless, I don't think it's going to be very good. The problem is that, let's say you have 6 Chrono Ascension, it's 600% damage, but it only procs the end of the turn. It is not fixed damage, so it will scale with other factors, and 600% free damage can be nice. I think for like chaos runs, actually, this is probably just nice because it's free consistent damage. I mentioned the issue with not necessarily being able to play all of your Chrono Ascension sometimes, and this can help with that issue. The thing is, you typically don't want to have Chrono Ascension at the end of your turn. You want to have Chronicle, and you gain Chrono Ascension at the start of your turn, which I don't think procs this if it's worded correctly. That might not be the case, though. I think even if it does, like, even if you convert your Chronicle to Chrono Ascension and then it procs this, I still don't think this is necessarily the greatest, but it is free damage if you're in a setup where you don't need any sort of extra Chronicle generation, and you can get the 12 Chronicle completely fine, then I think you can pick this up. This one removes the base effect, which is kind of rough, so you no longer have the 1 Chronicle for each cost of the card that you use, but when you exhaust the card, you gain 1 Chronicle. This is for Tefera, pretty much, and I think Tefera is going to be really good with Rita. So, thing is, I don't necessarily know why you would use this over something like the first one. There's probably going to be some situations where you might want this for a specific setup, but losing the base effect is really rough. This one keeps the base effect, but when a card is discarded, 1 Chronicle. I don't really know who would necessarily use this, and I don't necessarily know. You would have to discard 6 cards, right, for it to match up to the first one. I think this is generally same thing, not as good as the first one. Then this one, when a retain effect is activated, 1 Chronicle. This one I think you kind of have to use with Orlia for the most part, because, like, you are, like, what is it? You need to retain 6 times to match the first one, and you're... yeah, it's really only Orlia. And there are some other, like, setups you can do that maybe you could run with Orlia, but this is also another, like, niche thing. For general usage, I think this is the best one. I'm just going to say this is, like, 5 out of 5. I think this is 3 out of 5, because you still have the base effect, and, like, this could potentially beat all of your Chronicle generation, and it is free damage. Potentially, I think this is really good for Chaos. Outside of that, it depends whether or not this even procs in a perfect setup, because you should generally not have Chrono Ascension. And then this one is, I'll just say it's also, like, a 3. Same thing, like, or not same thing, but it loses the base effect, which is really rough, and even though it can work with stuff like Tefera, not necessarily just going to be better than the first one. It doesn't, like, offer anything. Like, this at least offers damage. This one gets a 2 because I just don't think this is, like, better than the first one. It's slightly more Chronicle generation. I don't think there's that many setups where you discard a ton of cards besides maybe, like, Nia. But you could just play the first one and you would probably get the same amount of effect, and the first one would be better for general usage. And then this one, I'll just also give a 3 because it's a more niche setup as well compared to the first one. So that is pretty much her core, like, Chronicle generation. Next up, we have Time Axis Collapse, and this one is pretty much one of her damage cards. So the first one just is a ton of damage. You get 20% more damage for each cost of cards in hand, max 200%. So this scales up pretty high damage. She has a lot of ways to increase the cost of her cards. Like, you can see one here. Fate Imprint we'll talk about a bit more later, but the damage of this can scale up pretty high, and it is 2 cost. Pretty much just a damage card for you to work with. It's one of her potential DPS builds. This one I don't think is that good. It's 1 cost, and you increase the damage amount by 30% for each 1 cost or lower card in hand. Your maximum is 270, right? Because of hand size issues. You're probably not going to reach that 270, just because it's like, you know, you're probably not going to be able to actually have your hand in that specific situation consistently, but there's a bit of anti-synergy here, I think, just because a lot of her cards are high cost in the first place, and a lot of her kit just kind of centers around supporting high cost units anyways, but there are potential setups for this maybe. This one's just a little bit weird. And then this one increases the damage amount of the next 3 attack cards by 100%. It does cost 3 though, which is kind of expensive. I don't think you want to take this though because of her next one. So Time Access Collapse 4, you retain it, good amount of damage. It is 3 cost, but it's too vulnerable, and when you gain Chrono Ascension, it activates this card if it's in your hand. So Chrono Ascension, you gain it twice. As we mentioned earlier, either at the start of your turn, and the Chrono Ascension gain happens before you draw your hand, so you won't be able to draw Time Access Collapse and then proc it off of the start of turn 1. You'll only be able to play it, you'll only be able to get this free activation after the you play here, I forgot the name, Time Paradox. And this has some potentially interesting uses. So 2 vulnerable is really, really nice. Of course, I think if you're playing like a more supportive sub DPS build for her, you could copy this card and then you get a bunch of free vulnerable pretty much. And of course there's a condition of this has to be in your hand, but taking a look further, one of her cards here, Chrono Circle, later gets an upgrade that lets you draw 3 2-cost cards when you gain Chrono Ascension, and you gain Chrono Ascension at the start of your turn. So if you get the Divine cost reduction on this, turn it into a 2-cost card, you basically get to draw 3 of these for free at the start of your turn. And then you'll be able to pretty much guaranteed to proc at least 3 of these when you play your Time Paradox. That's 6 free vulnerable with a bunch of damage for free. I think this is like her general sub DPS card, and even if you're playing primary DPS, you probably want this anyways because it is still free damage and free vulnerable. So now this next one, it changes all the cost of Fate Imprint to 4. Fate Imprint is this card here. You increase the cost, or you have damage for each cost of the card, and then you increase the cost of the card by 1 after playing the card. So let's say you have like 3 Fate Imprints in your hand. The damage, or the cost, would be 2, then 3, then 4. And then after it leaves your hand, change cost to 2. It's also an exhaust card. Her Fate Imprints are mostly generated by actually the card that I showed earlier, but a different Epiphany. So this is her other DPS card that you'll be looking at, and this will increase the cost to 4. It'll make it harder to play them, but it will increase their damage by a lot. I think this is probably more niche usage. Maybe like the Current Rift, because the Current Rift does want you to play a specific amount of AP, and this can increase the cost of those cards and help you reach that AP threshold. Overall, in general, the best one's going to be the 4th one, just because I think this one is like almost always the one you pick up. The first one, though, is like okay. Like really, I think like these first 2 are both like situational DPS cards. They're both like 3 out of 5. This one I don't like a lot, and I'm going to give it like 2. Maybe there's some niche usage for it. This one's 5 out of 5, and this one's also 3 out of 5 because this is more niche usage, I think. Now for Future Decreed. This one is another one of her support cards, pretty much. So you have Future Decreed 1. It increases the cost of 1 2-cost or lower card by 1 until used, and then activate 1 random 3-cost card. So this is 0 AP. You get a free activation, and it does basically cost 1 AP, so you can think of it as a 1 AP card. There are potentially benefits to this though, because if you're only like 2 cost or lower card remaining is Fate Decreed, you will be able to get the damage. Not Fate Decreed, what is it? Fate Imprint, I think. You'll be able to get the free damage boost for it, a slight increase. So that is really the only use of this, I think, because otherwise this one's kind of better. This one, the first one does work on skill cards because it mentions any card. The second one is only attack cards, but it doesn't cost any AP at all. This is actually 0 AP, and you activate 1 random 3 cost attack cards in hand. This is really good for 9 support, because keep in mind that this is an Epiphany card. You can get Divine Epiphanies on this, so in general, this is just better than Fighting Spirit. Not only does it cost 0 AP, you actually can get Divine effects on this. So for 9 support, this is just better Fighting Spirit. And then Future Decree, this one sucks. Like, it's 3 cost to activate 1, you can't even select it. A random 3 cost attack card in draw pile. This is 3 AP to play 3 AP. The only benefit is you get to pick it out of your hand. It's random. If you could select it, you could at least use it as like kind of like Cassius's Joker card, and except you get to play it. I don't think this is very good. Activate 2 random 2 cost cards in hand. It's 2 AP. So think of it as you play 2 AP and you gain 4, or you get to play 2 cost cards, which is 4 AP. So effectively, this gives you 2 AP for free. This has potential setups, I think, because you do need to kind of build around it so you actually have 2 cost cards. But if you have the cards, even though it's random, you can like set up your decks so you can get use out of this. If it's a 2 cost card setup deck, then this can be really good. You might think that you want to use this with Haru, but I think that Narja kind of just does the job better because she can just reduce the cost of the cards. But maybe if you really want to use her with Haru anyways. And then this one, when a card whose cost is increased is used manually, 300% damage to a random enemy. Now, we already went over Fate Imprint, and we know that as you play more Fate Imprints, the cost increases. So this will pretty much proc when you play your Fate Imprints. There's other funny setups like Flames of Eternity from Swamp, which increases the cost of all your cards. And that could be potentially a way to proc this over and over. Keep in mind, this is not fixed damage, so this will consume vulnerable, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The damage modifier is like solid, as long as you have enough vulnerable application sources. I think this one is like okay. Overall, I don't think any of these like kind of super stand out. In general, I think this one's like a 3. I must say it's 3 out of 5. I think even though like you can get a benefit of this hitting the Fate Imprint, it's RNG because it's gonna like increase the cost of a random card. This one, I'll say it's 4 out of 5. You can use it for any, like, of course it's best it's not for 9 support, and you would probably dupe this 4 times with the Divine for a 9 support build. Even on her personal one, you can use this to play like one of her Fate Imprints when it hits 3 costs for free. It does take up a draw though, which is maybe not great, but she is more AP hungry than anything else, I would say, so I think you kind of just want this anyways. This one is a 1 out of 5. This one is also a 3 out of 5. You kind of have to build around it. You can use this to play 2 Fate Imprints, pretty much, but this one just saves you more AP, because this saves you 3 AP, this only saves you 2. And then this one, I think, is also kind of situational. Maybe some really funny builds, but I'll give it a tentative 3 out of 5 for now. And then Chrono Circle. So this is your Fate Imprint generation card. The first one, create 3 Fate Imprint. And we already went over what Fate Imprint does. You just want to play it a bunch and the cost will go up. This cost can go all the way up to 9. It does have retain, so you can hold it in. For this first one, there's not too much to say about it. It's just your Fate Imprint generation card. For a DPS Rita, like, this is just your card, pretty much. The second one is a different version of it. You only create 2, but on retain, you'll create 1 Fate Imprint. This is with Orlia, pretty much. like, because Orlia can activate retain effects. Do keep in mind that, like, I mean, this is 2 AP. It goes 3, 4, 5, 6. The cost keeps on going up. You're not necessarily going to be able to play all your Fate Imprints, and these aren't ephemeral, so these will stay in your hand. Make sure you don't create too many Fate Imprints. This has probably, like, niche setups. And, yeah, this has, like, alternative setups to the first one, probably. So now for this middle one, it basically lets you draw your basics for free, because you gain the Chrono Ascension before you draw any cards, and then it would move it out of your draw pile into your hand, assuming you're full cycling your deck every turn. And then after that, when you play the, what is it called? Time Paradox, you will be able to play your basics again. Your basics are really high cost though, and I don't think they're necessarily even higher damage than just playing your Fate Imprints. Also because their like cost is so high, you don't necessarily get proper benefit out of Ray. So I don't think this is necessarily amazing. I think the basic setup is kind of a gimmick. Select an exhaust one exhaust card from all cards, then create Fate Imprint for each cost of that card. I think this is another one where it's like, if you're... Ideally, you would want to, you know, pick a high cost exhaust card that you can play over and over again. Something like Q works really well, of course. Even though, like, so like if you're running this with 9 support, even though your Fate Imprint costs AP, remember that she gets like free personal AP to use. So even if you're running her like with other high AP cost units, you can still play her Fate Imprints without too much issue. And then the fifth one is just when you get Chrono Ascension, you gain 3 2-cost attack cards. We went over this. There's like potentially really funny setups. Not like, besides just with other characters, with her personal one, you can play Chrono Circle 3, and then you can basically consistently draw Time Access Collapse 4 if you get the -1 cost on this, and you get 2 vulnerable for free, pretty much. So that, I think, is like the interesting setup for this. Overall, this one's kind of like the base one. You're generally going to go with this. I'm just going to say this is like 4 out of 5. And this one is 3 out of 5, a bit more situational. This one, don't like it a lot. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. This one is... I think it really depends on who you're working with. This is like, I'll just say a 3.5, because if you're running this, or if you're running her with 9, there's really no reason to not run this one as opposed to the first one if you're playing Extreme. But then on certain setups, like especially because you'll have Fighting Spirit, and you'll also have the Future Decree 2, which actually activates the card. When you play like Chrono Circle 4, it's just going to exhaust it and you won't actually get the damage for it. This is definitely a lot more situational. We're actually going to say 3 out of 5. It's a bit more situational because you don't actually get the damage from playing the Hue. And then this one potentially has some funny setups, but I'm going to say 3.5 out of 5. I think the vulnerable build could be something that is actually like a thing, though there's probably like other better vulnerable appliers. Then lastly, her Ego skill, 6 Chrono Ascension, increase damage strength of the next attack card of this unit used by 10% for each cost of cards activated. This battle max 200%, so you can play this after you've spent 20 AP, pretty much, and then you get 6 Chrono Ascension for free, which is just 6 personal AP. Not too much to say about this. It's like a standard Ego skill one-time damage boost. For her partners, her personal partner is actually not fantastic. I think the damage boost that you get from that is also just not really worth it. You get 8% attack compared to the 16, and then Eloise is enough. The passive effect alone is worth it. And Ivy, her personal partner, does have an Ego skill that boosts your damage a bit, but I think you're generally just going to want to run with Eloise, especially because she is free to play. She is only a 4-star. For her potentials, unless you're going the basic attack build, you're going to skip all these 3 basic attack nodes. Otherwise, you're just going to pick up the usual unique, and then the 2 stat ones. Plus this one here, This is increasing her base attack, so it's like 40, like somewhere in the low 40s attack bonus, basically. Nothing insane. I think this is like kind of worse than the other ones that other characters have, but it's something. For her memory fragment, I think you just go 2/2/2. The problem with, like, I don't even know if I have one of that set. The problem with some of like the other ones is that it only works 5 times per turn, and if you're DPS Rita, you might be playing more than 5 attack cards a turn. If you're sub DPS, then this might be, then I think the 4-piece beast is actually okay. You just have to make sure you're not attacking more than 5 times a turn. Otherwise, just go the usual 2/2/2, and you probably have like a good like double 2-piece set. The last set you honestly just broken set, it doesn't really matter. For her egos, the first one's probably the most useful one. It does require you to actually, max out your Chronicle, but gives you an additional 2 AP essentially. Very, very nice given how AP hungry Rita is, and there's definitely like certain setups that will probably need you to have this extra 2 AP, and again, in like a perfect deck, you should be maxing out your Chronicle. When you get Chronicle Ascension, you create a Fate Distortion, increase damage of the next attack card of the unit used by 30%, increase damage amount by an additional 10% for each cost of that card. So if you're doing like a big nuke card for Rita, like you built up a lot of Fate imprints, you can play this right before playing your big boom, and then you'll get a bunch of extra damage for it. Pretty much free damage boost. I think this is a nice damage boost, probably less important than this first one. Ego skill. 1/2 cost or higher card is activated. Gain 1 trace of memory. It just gives her free damage boost, basically. It only lasts for 1 turn though, and it's a max stack of 6. This is a lot of AP to get through. It kind of takes a while to scale up. It's a damage boost. I don't think this is like, it's very deep. It just increases her stat cards, or the stats of her cards, usual stuff. And then the last one, when you gain Chrono Ascension, gain 6 extra Chrono Ascension once per battle. And then when you remove Chrono Ascension, inflict 80% fixed damage for each Chrono Ascension used over 1 turn. So this is fixed damage. It is free damage, basically. I think a lot of E6s just give you free damage. And then it's a one-time use of extra Chrono Ascension, but this is nice for like playing through upgrades and stuff on your first turn. I think getting extra EP on your first turn is actually very valuable, just because you want the ability to get through all of your upgrades. So this is nice. I don't think it's like a mind-blowing one though. This is probably the most important one. So that is it for... Oh, actually, I forgot to go over the card motion restorations. I haven't actually like seen any of these, but I think in general, either Time Access Collapse or Future Decreed are probably good. It might depend on what you're trying to use her as. Whichever card you're duplicating is the one you probably want to prioritize. Then whichever one you didn't duplicate is the one I would do after. And then probably Chrono Archon. It is an upgrade, but it does feature her at least. And then these two don't really feature her. You can do these however you want. This one at least has her hand though. That is it for all of the Rita stuff. What units are you going to use her with? So she has some different builds, I think. Like, obviously there's a lot of her cards that support her, well, being 9 support, and you could definitely make that a thing. Besides that, you could maybe have her support some other units like Haru or something. For her own personal support, I think Tefera is going to be really good with her. Tefera can generate so much AP with the right build. You also have, like, if you just need more draw, there's the usual Veronica. Orlia helps her with damage boost, because Rita really doesn't have that much damage boost of her own. There's the other usual draw supports. If you don't want to use Veronica, like Rinoa or Hugo, stuff like that. Pretty generic support stuff, but I think in general, she's meant to synergize really well with 9 and Tefera, depending on how you want to play her. So that is pretty much for all of the Rita stuff. Good luck for anybody that is rolling.